Good evening, everyone. This is State Representative Brad Halbrook. We appreciate you joining us tonight for this special edition of Facebook Live. As we're waiting others to join us, just like to mention a couple places how you can connect with us. You can go to rephalbrook.com and you can leave us feedback there and join our weekly email list there. Also, the non-stateside page is bradhalbrook.com. And of course, you're joining us here on Facebook on Brad Halbrook with the blue check mark. Again, stateside, where you can leave us feedback about the event tonight or any other questions or concerns you have, is rephalbrook.com. Non-stateside is bradhalbrook.com. And of course, Facebook, Brad Halbrook with the blue check mark. Additionally, we would like to do more of these this fall. This has kind of been the first one we've done in several weeks since we left Springfield, and would enjoy your feedback, what you would like to hear about, what content. If there's a special guest that you'd like to hear from, just let us know of how and what, and we will sure try to do that. Tonight, I am honored to have you all joining us tonight with this as we kick off the fall with our Facebook Lives. And also I have two special guests, two county clerks from the 102nd District. We have with us tonight the clerk of Douglas County, Judy Pollock, and the county clerk of Shelby County, Jessica Fox, is here with us tonight. And as the promo said, we are going to discuss what was SB 1863, that was termed the Omnibus Election Law, that was passed this past May in Springfield in the shortened, abbreviated special session. And so we have put together a list of a lot of questions tonight that we're going to bounce back and forth between our two clerks. And then you can also leave us questions, comments, concerns in the comment section, and our team will try to get those to us and we'll try to answer them. If we don't get everybody followed up with on the call tonight or on the Facebook Live, we will do our level best to follow up with you here right away. Or you can just email us directly at halbrook@ilhousegop.org. Again, that's halbrook@ilhousegop.org. With all that preliminary out of the way, let's get started. Let's meet our guest tonight, Judy Pollock, again, Douglas County Clerk. We'll start with you, Judy. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how your office is in Douglas County, how things are going in Douglas. Judy?
Thanks, Brad. I've been county clerk since 2013, and we are very busy preparing for the election. This election is going to be a lot different than what we've done before. This election bill's been a big animal for us, but I feel like we've got a pretty good handle on what we're doing, with a lot of networking with fellow clerks and bouncing ideas back and forth on each other. We've got a lot of plans in place, and it's kind of hard to believe we're working this far towards the election and it's only September 1. It's kind of unusual for us to be doing some of the things we're doing right now, but we're very busy and going to do the best job that we can with this election.
Excellent. Thank you, Judy. And thanks for joining on. And I'm sure our guests are going to enjoy the discussion tonight and your answers to some of these questions. Jessica Fox, Shelby County, tell us about yourself and what's going on in Shelby County getting ready for the election.
Okay, I am Jessica Fox, as Brad said, and I really appreciate being here tonight. I have been clerk since 2013 as well. It is very busy right now in Shelby County preparing for the November 3rd election. Between getting about 1,400 vote by mail requests so far, we are also scheduling election judges and preparing for the April 2021 election. We have sent out a bunch of stuff to local election authorities for that. So essentially, while we're working on November, we're also kind of planning for April as well. But it is busy. It's like Judy said, this election is going to be something very different for us. It seems the rules kind of change. You know, more is being thrown in our lap than has been previously, and we're just keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that November 3rd will go off without a hitch. It just may be a little bit difficult behind the scenes, but we will make it happen.
Yeah, excellent. Well, and ladies, there really isn't an election day anymore. It's more of an election season. And so it's And every year in Springfield, they seem to kind of want to add more to that, to where it's less and less of election day and more of a season. So, well, thank you again for joining us. First question here, rather simply, Judy, who can vote by mail? What's the parameters about who can vote by mail?
Anybody can vote by mail, as long as you are registered in the county that you're requesting that ballot in, and if you've not already voted early in office. So anybody registered is eligible to vote by mail.
Okay, all right. Jessica, a question we get here about these vote by mail applications. What did the law spell out about these applications that you as clerks have mailed out? How did you handle that? What was the directive in the law about the vote by mail applications?
Well, the directive in the law was that we were to mail an application to any voter who had voted in the 3 previous elections. And we were also told that we were to mail those applications to any address those voters had been at for the 3 prior elections. In Shelby County, we mailed the vote by mail application to every registered voter, because based on what grant funds we are getting, the overall expense to go ahead and mail one to every voter wasn't that much. One thing that we did not do is we did not send a bunch of applications to addresses in Florida and Arizona that these people were not currently at or may never be at again. But every voter in Shelby County received a vote by mail application at their registered address in Shelby County.
Okay, excellent. Judy, how did you handle it in Douglas County? Did you do the 3 elections or add to it? How did it go up there in Douglas County?
Yeah, we did the 3 elections that were required. And so we sent out approximately 7,135 vote by mail applications. We thought that was the best avenue for us. And we too, like Jessica, did not send to those addresses where we knew no one was going to be.
Right, right. So I'm getting reports, and it sounds like you guys are too, about multiple, you're required to mail, right? And the new law says you guys are required to mail applications, but there's other interest groups and other third parties, I guess, that are mailing applications. I'm hearing some of these people have received 4 and 5 applications. How are you handling that, Judy and Douglas? With what kind of questions are you getting about that?
We're getting a lot of questions about that. There's a lot of concern with the voters, as there should be. Not only did they get the vote by mail application that came from my office, then the third party vendors, a lot like you said, a lot of these people have gotten 5 applications. So it's a lot of work. When you're a registered voter in Douglas County, well, any county, you have a unique voter ID that is attached to you. And so if you return an application to us, we're putting that ID is on that application that we sent out. And we're putting that in our voter registration system. It recognizes you. It tells the system that we've gotten an application for you. But if we get a third party vendor, there's no marking on there with a voter ID. So we're typing that into our system, but we can see that, we'll use me for an example. Let's just say I'd already returned one, and let's say I returned the third party vendor one, but the system's showing that I've already returned an application. So we have a really good checks and balance, but we are seeing lots of duplicate applications.
Okay. Jessica, any other security measures that you've had to implement? These voter IDs, that's across the state, right? Everybody has a unique voter ID, so that's probably the first level of security. What other measures are you having to put in place? Is there anything else to put in place? And what's it look like there for you?
I guess one of the things that we did, one of the things that will be put in place when the ballots are starting to be returned will be the panel of 3 judges that have to look over the signatures. Normally in the past, we've never had that. And this time we will have 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat that within 2 days of those ballots being returned have to meet and make the decisions amongst the three of themselves whether or not the signature on that ballot is actually, well, I should say the signature on the certification envelope is actually the signature of the voter as we have it in our voter record.
Okay. So to that point, that's kind of another backstop or another check and balance, right? So when you log those ballots in, you log those in, those are reported to the State Board of Elections, correct? When you do that.
Yes.
So you're going to know that if you would happen to get an additional ballot from that person, you're going to know, right, that that person has already sent a ballot back.
Well, fortunately, our system that we have the same system as Judy, and fortunately, our system only allows the voter to receive one ballot.
Okay.
There's absolutely no way with the system that we have that a voter could get multiple ballots. I know in some other counties, maybe they have a system that would allow that. Our system does not. Okay.
So you've got some levels of security built in right from the beginning. That's good to hear. Good. When you mail back to these requesters that have asked for a vote by mail, what are they going to receive in the mail? Are they just going to get a ballot in an envelope, Jessica? Are there going to be instructions, a return envelope? What will be in this? Will there be a package as such that they will get back?
Yes, they will receive a packet, and I will tell any voter who's previously voted by mail, it's not going to look as it has in the past. There will be a card attached to the ballot that basically flips, so with the name and the address for return, and same way with mail. They will still have a certification statement on there that they can sign, and anybody that assists a voter would have basically something to fill out as well, stating that they assisted the voter. There will be instructions in there how the voter should complete their ballot. There will be a statement in there if they're curious about any write-in candidates, they can call the office and we can tell them what write-in candidates are on Shelby County's ballot, and then they will basically bundle up their ballot and either return it by mail. They will be able to have somebody bring their ballot back to the county clerk's office for them. There is a statement that the voter has to sign as well as the person who returns the ballot, and we will have a drop box installed hopefully the first week in October to the east of the courthouse, where 24/7 drop off for those ballots.
Excellent. And Judy, I would expect the same in your county. Anything different than that? Jessica touched on a number to call in. I would guess there's a number that they can call to talk to somebody live. Is that in the county, or is that outside the county to somebody to provide instructions? How would that work?
That would be in our office. And our process is very similar to Jessica's. They'll receive that certification envelope that will be filled out with all their pertinent information. They'll sign that, vote their ballot, put that back in the certification envelope, put it in the return envelope, and they too will have instructions from us on everything they need to do. And that will be in their little packet, as we'll call it, and they can stick that in the mail. We put return postage on our envelopes to mail back the ballot. We've always done that. We've talked about doing away with that, decided this wasn't the time to do it. And we too are going to have a ballot drop box that we hope to have installed by the first week in October.
Okay.
And then they too can return those to our office. If they sign off on that, and then whoever is returning it will have to sign off on that envelope too.
Right. Okay. So kind of along a little different as far as early voting. We've had early voting now for a while. You both have early voting at the courthouse. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And so when does early voting start? And this kind of triggers the same question about when these ballots go back. So when does early voting start?
September 24th.
Okay.
Is early voting.
Right. And Jessica, the ballots would go back out on the same day, or is that a different day?
Yes, actually, ballots will be mailed September 24th. I know in the law it was written that the voters should receive their ballots by October 6th. I'm hoping for that, but not to blame the post office. But you just never know when you put mail in the post office how long it might take to get there. But we are anticipating our ballots being mailed September 24th, yes.
Okay. So what does, Jessica and Judy will ask you the same question here also, what does early voting operations, for someone that's never voted, or if they're concerned it's changed, they have early voted in the courthouse, what does that look like? What are they going to expect if they've never voted early at the courthouse? What can they expect when they get there?
Well, in Shelby County, unfortunately, most every courthouse now you have to go through security. But coming into Shelby County Courthouse, you will go through security. Due to the COVID virus, you will be asked some questions. Your temperature will be taken. Masks are recommended, but not required. You will be asked why you're at the courthouse, and you will say, I want to vote. So you'll come up to the county clerk's office, and you don't have to show ID or anything like that. Providing that you are a correctly registered voter, we will have you complete an application. We will print a ballot for you. We will initial your ballot and tell you how to correctly vote your ballot. We'll send you out to the voting booth in the hall. We'll have you come back. You'll put your ballot in the ballot drop box, well, actually the machine where it will be processed, and then you get your I voted sticker and you're out the door.
Oh, well, good. Judy, very similar in Douglas, or is there anything any different or anything voters should know in Douglas County about when they would come to the courthouse to early
Yeah,
vote?
it'll be very similar. You'll come in through security. You'll be asked to put on a mask. We don't take temperatures in Douglas County. You'll come up to the second floor to my office. One of my girls will ask you your name. We don't need your photo ID at all. If you've got your voter ID card, that's great, but it's not required. And so if you're registered, we'll print your application. You'll sign. You'll choose whether you want to vote paper or whether you'd like to vote touchscreen. If you've not been there before, you won't know the process is any different, but it will be a little different. We're expanding out to the hall so we can socially distance with our voters, and then you'll come back into the office and place your ballot in the ballot box and get your I voted sticker.
Great, great. So the question we're hearing is when these ballots are returned in mail, where do they go? Do they go to an agency somewhere? They come into your office directly? Do you have to go to the post office and pick them up? What are people, where should they expect, and how should these ballots, how are they being handled? And Jessica?
In Shelby County, our ballots our mail is not delivered to the Shelby County Clerk's office. We actually go to the post office every day. We have a post office box. So our ballots will hopefully all fit in the post office box. But no, we pick up our mail, we bring it back, and then we will store those in a safe, secure location until our panel of 3 judges can come in within 2 days and review those ballots and process them.
Okay. And Judy, does post office deliver to you, or do you have a similar situation there?
No,
going to the post office?
we have a post office box, and we too go to the post office every day, pick up our mail,
Yeah.
and we'll bring the ballots back, and we'll have a secure location for them, and we'll be waiting on those panels of judges to process those ballots. And we've kind of tentatively decided that'll be Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And I think we all are, we've kind of got a little bit of a plan, but we'll maybe have to tweak that plan as we go along and see at what volume the ballots come back in.
Right. Yep, good plan. What's the last day to mail a ballot to your office? A request comes in. Is there a cutoff date that you have to honor those requests? I mean, what's the cutoff date to return a ballot back to those requesters, and kind of how does that work, Jessica?
Okay, the last day that we can mail a ballot to any voter requesting one is October 29th. However, for a voter to return, it would have to be either postmarked November 3rd, dropped off at the county clerk's office, or in the drop box by 7. So it's a little quirky because, like I said, the last day that a voter could request a vote by mail is actually October 29th. However, a voter can come into the office, this is a little known fact. A voter can actually come into the office on November 2nd and say, I want to vote by mail. And we can give them their ballot that they hand carry out. And then in terms of the return, it has to be either postmarked November 3rd or returned to the clerk's office by 7 p.m. on election day, or put in the drop box by 7 p.m. on election day.
Yeah, exactly. So, Judy, again, you touched on the three-member panel that will go through these ballots every other day for 3 days every week. Walk us through that process. What happens when that ballot, you get it, you pick it up from the post office? How are those ballots accounted for and counted? Can you describe that process to us a little bit?
Well, all of our envelopes will have posting numbers on them. And then the application has the same posting number on them. So we'll secure all those ballots, and then all that work to open those up, verify the signatures, that's all going to lay within that panel of judges. That process usually happens in our office, but this is just a bigger animal this time. So these judges will actually open these ballots and take them out, look at the application, make sure it's signed, compare signatures, and then if everything's okay, then they will process those ballots into the ballot box.
Okay. And then those ballots, they're put into the ballot box, but then the actual tabulation doesn't happen until the end of election day, right? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. So kind of a sort of a related question, and we've got one of our viewers texted this in, and it's on our list also, is our voters still going to be able to vote in their precincts? Are they still going to be able to vote in person? We talked about the early voting at the courthouse. That kind of answers that, but at the precinct level, are we still going to have elections at our precincts?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jessica, same in Shelby, I would assume.
Yes, same in Shelby. Everybody will be able to go to their precinct and vote. It may look a little bit different with some of the stipulations that IDPH has handed down to us, but we will make it work. Like I said, when I got the IDPH guidelines, a voter's going to be in a polling place 10 to 15 minutes. They spend more time in Walmart. So, you know, we will have hand sanitizer, we'll have wipes, the judges will be disinfecting everything, but yes, polling place voting will still happen.
Okay, great. We've got a question from Michael about what's in the envelope. We touched on that earlier. Will there be a copy of the current signature that they have on file? Judy, can you talk about the current signature that's on file? Will the copy of that be in the packet, or how will that be handled?
The signature that they have on file currently in the voter registry?
Right. Will there be a copy of that, or no? There won't be.
No.
Okay. All right. And Jessica, I think you and I talked about this the other day, because the three-member panel, they have to all agree or disagree that a signature is correct, and they're looking at they're comparing that to a signature that is potentially how old? Is it the most recent election they voted in, or is it when they registered to vote many years ago? What are they looking at to compare that to?
It will be the most recent election that they voted in. Every time after a voter, when a voter goes to the polling place on election day, or wherever they vote on election day, they sign an application. Those all come back to us after an election, and they all get scanned in. So therefore, we have their most current up-to-date signature on file. So the signature on the ballot will be compared to their most recent signature that we have for that voter. Okay.
So if it's been 40 years since they registered to vote, but yet they voted in multiple elections since then, you're not going to go back to the very first one. It's going to be the most recent one.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. So we got a question here from Ann. She's talking about how soon can you vote absentee? Really, absentee voting is really no longer a thing, right? I mean, it's been replaced by vote by mail, right?
Well, absentee
and early,
in a sense, it's kind of been replaced by absentee doesn't really exist anymore. It's either vote by mail or early voting. Because with absentee, you used to have a reason of, hey, why aren't you going to the polling place on election day? So people would have to say, oh, you know, I'm going to the doctor or whatever. But now you don't need a reason to vote early or vote by mail.
Okay. Right. Right. Yeah. Judy, I think we maybe touched on this earlier about the process when the ballots come into your office. The question is, are the ballots counted? And this may have been asked before we got to, but I want to just touch on this question. Just one more. Are the ballots counted that day, like on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or they're counted at the end of the day on the election day? Just let's reiterate on that one just a bit.
We'll put the ballots in the ballot box, and that is, it's taking that vote, or it's processing that ballot in, but we don't have any results until after 7 o'clock on election night.
Okay.
So it's showing like maybe we've got 300 ballots in there, or it's keeping track of how many ballots have been put in there. And then we will run that tape for what has gone into that machine after 7 o'clock on election night.
Okay, good. So let's talk a little bit more about at the precinct level. What happens? What's the security at the precinct level for people? You've got your list, or I don't have my verbiage right. They have a book with everybody's signature there. How does an election judge or a panel of election judges at the precinct, how do they know whether a person has voted by mail or voted at the office? Judy, how are you handling that in Douglas County? How do they know that?
Our judges will receive a list of a complete list of the voters, and it will indicate on that list if they have voted by mail or early, and they will be checking that list as they're looking for the application for the voter. They're also checking that list to make sure they've not already voted.
Okay, Jessica, similar, anything different, how you're handling it in Shelby?
That is the same process as in Shelby County. We do provide our election judges with a list. We also call them because voters can still come in on November 2nd when our judges are picking up their supplies. So if we have voters at the various precincts that vote early on November 2nd, then we call those judges first thing on election day to let them know, hey, please add these people to your list because they voted Monday.
Okay, so there's going to be some kind of last minute updates that they will be apprised of at the time that polls open on Tuesday the 3rd. What about voting at the courthouse? Who's going to be able to vote at the courthouse on election day? Will anybody be able to vote at the courthouse on election day? How is that similar to in the past, or how is that different than in the past?
Anybody?
In Shelby County. Go ahead, Judy.
Okay. With this new law, anybody can vote at the courthouse on election day for this election. That's something very new for us because technically, I guess we're considered a polling place that day. And what we're used to doing in the clerk's office is doing what we call a grace voting, grace registration and voting on election day. So if a voter were to go to the precinct on election day and maybe somebody got married, moved, didn't change their address, and they're not able to vote, they can come to the clerk's office. They can change their name, change their address, and we do that right there in the office, and they vote right there at that time. So we're used to handling, I think the very first year that happened, we had like 80 grace registration voters. As time's gone past, that's kind of dwindled down. We might have 30, 35 of those. But with this new law, we will be required to allow anybody to vote in the courthouse on election day.
Anybody in the county on election day at the courthouse?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Jessica, what's the last day that people can put ballot in the drop box?
The last day that anybody can put a ballot in the drop box will be election day, November 3rd, and they have until 7 p.m. to do that. We will go out at 7:01 and remove whatever is in that ballot box, and we will seal so that nothing else can be placed in there.
Right, right. And so I don't know that we touched on this about the drop boxes too terrible much when we talked about them earlier, but I would assume in both your locations, Jessica, I know you and I have talked about it, and I assume Jody also you would have you're going to have a video camera, so we can that can be watched as far as if there's any shenanigans and things like that. You'll have the video surveillance. People dropping a ballot shouldn't feel intimidated by that, but that should be a level of security to them to let them know that there is some video surveillance, and so that hopefully keeps shenanigans to a, well, non-existent, not to a minimum. We want shenanigans to be non-existent, and so anyhow, you'll have a video record of that pickup at 7:01 on election evening and anything else, correct?
That's correct. And plus, we will, we are required, we have guidelines from SBE on what we have to do in terms of when we do pick up on a daily basis from the drop box once it's installed and once we start having ballots dropped in. So
right, there is some guidelines. Judy, I don't know if we touched on the ballots that are being returned by mail. What is the postmark requirement? I don't know if we touched on it. If we did, we're going to hit it again. Is there a postmark requirement, and how long will those ballots have to come in and still be counted?
They need to be postmarked by November 3rd, and then there's a 14-day period that we can accept those ballots.
Okay, so 14 days, or the 17th.
17th.
The 17th of November up till the close of business at 4 or 5, whatever that case might be on that 2 weeks later. Okay.
That's correct.
Jessica, college students, this is maybe going to be a concern, maybe not as much as in the past, just because of the different schedules now with some of these colleges and universities. What is the best way, the proper way for college students? I say proper and best. It should be the proper way for college students that are registered at home where they've grown up, where their parents still reside. They actually still have a permanent address there, but they're away 8-9 months to school. What's the method there that college students should try to do to vote?
Well, probably their best and easiest option to at least vote if they don't plan on being home is to vote by mail. And they can go to our vendor's website and request a vote by mail application. Another way, Shelby County is going to be open on the 21st and the 28th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. and also on Saturdays, the 24th and the 31st from 9 to noon. So if those college students are going to be in town, I would certainly encourage them to come in and vote while they're at home. Likewise, if they're at home on a fall break maybe and could swing in Monday through Friday between 8 and 4, I would encourage them to do that as well. But if they are not going to get home, the best way for them to vote would be to request a vote by mail application.
So Jessica, some of those dates and hours, those are kind of expanded hours that the law allows for, is that correct?
Yes, we are expanding our hours. Normally for the bigger elections, we do try to be open 2 Saturdays, but we're going to be open a couple of Wednesday evenings this time around to maybe allow for people on their way to church or whatever to stop in and vote.
Okay. Yeah. And Judy, I would assume similar situation in Douglas with some expanded hours. What's that look like for you there?
Yeah, we will be open the 2 Saturdays prior to election, 9 to noon. We've not made any decisions about any other times. We're just trying to kind of gauge, see how this vote by mail is. And then once the early kicks off, we'll see what the traffic's going to be for that. Typically for a presidential, we'll run about 1,200 people through the office for early voting. We are expecting way more than that for early voting this time. Same way with vote by mail. The maximum we've ever had is 400 ballots vote by mail for a presidential. We're over 1,000 this morning. So, and it's just September 1st. So we're kind of trying to gauge what traffic is and where we think we need to go in the next few weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Question, Jessica, there's concerns out there that these ballots, packets or whatever that are going to be returned, are they marked with a D or an R? I know that in a primary, right, we have to declare our party at a primary, but in general, we get to vote for whichever party, whether more than 2 parties, 3 or 4. Is there a marking to how they voted in the primary of any nature on these packets that they receive back in the mail?
No, there is absolutely no marking of any kind to make anyone aware of the political affiliation of the voter on these general election ballots. Now, it's like you said, in a primary, the voter does have to declare their party affiliation. That is public record, basically. I mean, if people call and ask, we can say how people voted. But no, in this general election, nobody has to declare, nobody has to say, and there will be no markings of any kind on the outside of that ballot to let anyone who's handling that ballot know what party that voter might be affiliated with.
Yeah, good information. Judy, this new election law, we really haven't touched on it. This does kind of some unique things. Number one, this law sunsets after this election. So this could all go away or stay the same if it was redone in the spring, or it could be expanded. So, but there are some additional new provisions for 16-year-olds, right? There's been some provisions in the past for 17-year-olds, I believe, that they could be registered to vote for the primary as long as they would be 18 by the general election, I believe. 17-year-olds, Judy, is this right? Can 17-year-olds serve as election judges up to this point also?
Yes, student election judge program, which is a pretty big thing in Douglas County. Juniors and seniors. So yeah, your 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds can serve as election judges. So we reach out to the schools for that process and have always had great success. But I believe with this law, a 16-year-old is eligible to serve as an election judge.
Okay. How are you doing as election judges in Douglas County? Are you okay on election judges? Are you still looking for election judges, Judy?
For adult election judges, we have a relatively full slate. We're not sure where we're going to be when it comes time for them to serve in the precincts. But we haven't started. I have full intentions of using the students if we're allowed to by the schools. But with the kids just getting back in school, I usually start communicating with them mid-September, late September, to see if they're going to be able to serve. We rely very heavily on our student election judges to kind of fill in the gaps.
Okay.
And our adults really like the student judges.
Okay, good. So, Jessica, November 3rd is now a new state holiday, so all state offices are going to be closed. The county offices, with the exception of your office, will be closed. Is that correct?
That is correct, but for some reason in Shelby County, Election Day, General Election Day has always been a holiday here.
Okay.
So the courthouse is always closed on Election Day.
Yeah, so one thing that's a little bit different is the schools will be closed now.
Mm-hmm.
That is different this year round. And so that would free up if there's 16 or 17-year-olds, juniors or seniors that want to participate as potential election judges. And if they want to do that, Jessica, they can just reach out to your office. They can call and talk to you about how that might work.
Yes, we have tried to get a student election judge program off the ground in Shelby County, and we have not had a lot of luck. We've basically been trying that for at least the last 5 years, and we've had very little to no interest. Maybe this year, with November 3rd being a holiday, we might have some more interest. But any student that is interested in helping us on Election Day, yes, just reach out to the county clerk's office, give us a call, and we will get you lined up to help.
Okay, great. Another question, and I know this evidently can happen both at the courthouse and at the precinct, is curbside voting. I don't think we've touched on that this evening. That's kind of a new provision in the law, or maybe it's been there in the past, but maybe a little bit expanded. Can you? I guess let's start with Judy on this one. How is curbside voting? What should the voter do? What's the expectations for curbside voting in Douglas County?
Well, how we've handled curbside voting is they would communicate with us that they're not going to be able to, or the judges, they're not going to be able to get into the precinct, into the courthouse. And then we send 2 judges to their vehicle to vote them and go through all the proper procedures. Jessica, I'm going to guess you do it similar to that.
That's correct.
Yeah. We don't have a lot of requests, but we do occasionally.
Okay. All right, good. So a question here from Peter had sent in is, can a person who is voted by mail confirm somehow that their ballot was received? How can they do that? Is that possible? How can they confirm that their ballot was received in your office?
In our office,
Go ahead, Judy.
in our office, you can call and we will get into the system and we'll be able to tell you if we've received that ballot back.
Okay.
And that's the same in Shelby. All they have to do is call and we can let them know.
Okay. All right. We've got a question here about back to the college student situation. I'll just read it verbatim here. Can a college student vote in the town or city, wherever they are, wherever they attend school, and turn around and vote in their hometown? What if they're out of state even?
Not. Absolutely not.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a check and balance in that system?
There is a checks and balance. We had a voter a few elections ago who was a federal employee in Washington, D.C., and also maintained an address in Shelby County and voted in both places. And we were receiving phone calls from the FBI. We were being subpoenaed to possibly go out there and testify. Unfortunately, that was handled. But yes, I mean, people can have, people have voted twice, but it is a felony and you do risk criminal prosecution if you do that.
Yeah, the penalties are quite severe. So, and I would assume, Judy, that there are some campaigns, probably at the congressional level, maybe even at the U.S. Senate level, that are, and maybe even at the state level, that are running some ballot integrity programs to make sure that that does not happen. Is that correct? Have you seen that? What do you know about something like that, if anything?
No, I'm not aware. I mean, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
But, Jessica's absolutely correct. We work very hard to keep all that squared away, but it is all on the voter. If they're, your
Right.
example of a student voting at college and then coming home voting, that is absolutely on that voter and it is a felony. And that's on them.
You run the risk. It could be pretty
That's
severe penalty.
Exactly right.
Yep.
But that does lead us to a situation with the voters being able to come in to vote at the courthouse on election day. Any voter that comes into the courthouse to vote on election day that doesn't go to their precinct, it is going to be up to us to call that precinct and make sure, A, that they have not already voted there. And then if they have not, then to call the polling place and make them aware that that voter has indeed voted at the courthouse. So.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, we've got a question here, Jessica, and I don't know what Douglas County is like in this matter, but I know in Shelby County there's some write-in candidates. The election judges at the precinct level will have a list, right, of the write-in candidates. Is that correct? They will have that at the precinct level?
That is correct. Each polling place will have a list of write-in candidates at the precinct level. Now, that list is not posted, but any voter who has a question about write-in candidates can ask the election judges if they could look at that list. We have several presidential write-in candidates. The list just keeps growing every day. And then locally, for county board races and circuit clerk races in Shelby County, we do have write-in candidates.
Yeah, so the early vote or vote by mail person, that's two separate things, I'm sorry. The vote by mail person, are they privy to that list also? Will they get a list in that packet, or how will that be handled?
They will not get a list of write-in voters in their packet. They will have a list of instructions that tell them if they want to be made aware of write-in candidates in the county, that they can call and ask the county clerk's office, and then we can give them that information.
Okay, all right. And Judy, I assume it's similar or probably exactly the same in Douglas County.
Yes, that is correct. That's exactly how we do it. We would be glad to give them that information.
Right.
And our judges will have any write-in lists with them that they're allowed to let the voters look at.
Right.
We're just exactly like Shelby County.
Yeah. So a couple of closing questions here from our viewers, kind of similar. When does early voting start? We touched on that earlier, but let's just recap. Early voting, and when can they vote? Like at the courthouse, basically the same day. That'd be September 24th. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
September 24th. So that's a key day. That's when you can early vote at the courthouse, and then that's when the ballots that have been requested to go back out is September the 24th, and hopefully they would receive them in a couple, 3 days after that. And we've talked about dates to get them returned back. Ladies, that's all the questions that I've got, unless something pops up here from commenters on our Facebook Live. I appreciate everybody sticking with us here for the last 45 or 6 minutes. Jessica, any closing thoughts, questions, concerns that you'd like people out there to know about coming into the season?
I would just like to encourage everyone, especially if you've moved or if you haven't voted for a while, to please check your voter registration to make sure that you are correctly registered. We did have a purge as we are required to do a couple of years ago, and any voter that had not voted for a while might have been inactivated on our system. So please check your voter registration to make sure that you are correctly registered. Also, if you do request a vote by mail ballot and you decide not to vote that ballot and instead go to your polling place, please take that unvoted ballot with you and surrender it so that you are not required to vote provisionally when you go to the polling place.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I apologize. I did skip over that one. I had that on my mind, so thank you for bringing that up. What happens, Judy? Let's say an early vote requester got the ballot, they marked it up, but then they didn't mail it in, they didn't put it in the drop box, and they show up, they have a marked ballot. Are they still going to be able to vote at the precinct level?
If they surrender that ballot, they can.
Okay, so it'd be just like an unmarked ballot. They can show up, they just have to surrender that ballot to the election judge.
And we would spoil that,
okay,
and then they would be able to vote.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Jessica. Judy, any closing comments or things that folks in Douglas County need to know that we haven't touched on so far this evening?
No, I guess I would just urge everybody, if you want to vote by mail, that is great. We will guide you however you would like to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to urge you, vote your ballot when you get them and return them as quickly as you can. We have a great working relationship with our post office and have never had any issues with getting our mail on time. But this is a way different situation this time. Lots of ballots going to be in the mail. So don't delay in returning it. Don't get yourself in a situation where it might not get to us on time. Right. And this is probably one of the biggest questions I've had, or comments I've had. I don't want to vote by mail. I still want to go to my precinct. Well, you absolutely go to your precinct. Right. We're going to be ready. We bought all kinds of supplies to sanitation things to protect our judges and our voters, and we will be ready for you.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Yeah, so I've gotten a fair amount of email, and that's kind of what's driven to do this Facebook Live is people want to know about these things because we've got a lot of things that are a lot different. The virus is making things different. So if we need to, we may come back again one of these days prior to the election, do something similar with maybe some additional information, kind of review some of the stuff we've touched on, and just kind of do that for our people out there because things are different. The requests are phenomenal, and I'm guessing they're still going to pour in the way it sounds. With that, ladies, Jessica, Judy, I don't have anything else unless you do. I appreciate you guys being on with us tonight. I appreciate everybody taking their time out of their busy evening to watch this with us. Let us know, send us some comments, feedbacks of if you've enjoyed it, anything that we need to add or make different for the future. And with that, I'm going to close out and say good night. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.